So once again, welcome to all of you for this fourth lecture, Computer Networks course. So in the first three lectures, we have uh, just learned about the basic fundamentals of the network, internet, how the internet was evolved, and what exactly is a network, how we structure the network, like a core network is there, then how the endpoints connect to the network from the edges, and then different types of packet losses we have discussed, packet switching, circuit switching that we have discussed, and then yeah, different types of delays, and then a few terms like bandwidth, throughput, all these things, the basic things we have discussed. So now today onwards we are starting the second chapter, that is the application layers. So as you know that in this course we are following the top down approach. So we'll start from the application layer and then we'll go layer by layer to the
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Sir, your screen is not visible. Your video is visible, but the screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible. I have
Yeah.
shared the screen. Let me do it again. Video, I think it is better that maybe some issue, so I will close it. And screen, I am uh, drop it and then we'll start again. Is my screen is visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So audio and audio is also perfect. Am I
Yes,
audible?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, so
Yes.
now we'll start. So anyway, so with respect to this slide, I have not discussed anything. So I was just briefing about what we have done so far. And as I said, now we are moving to our first, uh, the application application layer or first layer of the internet or the network architecture, right? So first we need to understand, first we'll understand that, so we know that a network means basically so many, you can say endpoints, which we call as like our laptop, server, desktop machine, mobile phone, all these are endpoints which we can connect to the internet, right? That we have already understood. Now, what we are doing over the internet means if the machines are connected to each other, then we are running some applications on the machine, and basically these applications are used for the they communicate, these applications communicate, right? So now how a network application is different from other applications. We run some applications in our laptop, and that application is primarily like word application for editing. We run this application and then we do a text editing, typing, etc. And that application is running within in my laptop only. Okay, this application is not communicating to other application uh, which is running in another system or the network. So basically, it's a standalone machine, we call a standalone application. Now, when we talk about the network, then the applications we call as a network applications. We use the network applications. So what is network? So again, it is a software only, it's a program, right? So how this program is different from the typical standalone program which runs on a single system. So network application is also a program that runs different end systems, that runs on different end systems and communicate over the network. So different end system and the communicate over the network. So this is very important that it communicates over the network. So this is the way how the network application is different from a typical ordinary application which runs on a single system. So example, we use a lot of applications, right? Email applications, we file transfer application, then web browsing application we use. So for that web browser we use, we type the URL and then uh, means whatever URL we are typing corresponding to that remote site data we can access on our machine, and that. So basically, how we will understand that how this network application communicate. So the communication part is something additional to other things are there, that application, what application is is doing some computation, or it is displaying something, some processing, some data processing. That aspect is same with respect to the standalone application, but the aspect which is on which it is different is the communication part. Means the application can communicate over the network, means it is sending some information and receiving some information, right? So applications run primarily on the end systems only. So if you see here, these 5 layers, these TCP/IP 5 layers, which are running on these end host, okay, these endpoints, and these intermediate devices, which we have named as a router. If we say a device which is connecting to different types of network, then we'll say this device is a router, and a network intermediate device which is used within a same network, then we say this is a switch, and layer wise we say that switch is a layer 2 switch, and a switching device which is connecting to different networks, then we call this as a router. Okay, their functionality we will understand later, but right now for our purpose these are intermediate devices, and these intermediate devices don't run any application related code, right? So application entirely executes or runs at an end host only, right? So end host, where basically if the two hosts are communicating, then one host is suppose requesting something and then other host is responding, right? So the request response processing is done at the end host only. So as an network application developer, I don't have to write any code which is going to be execute on these routers, right? Router's job is already defined, that the whatever the you can say messages the application will create, that needs to be sent from one host to another host, that messages will be carried by these intermediate devices, right? That's all. Now intermediate device or these routers or these switches will not process anything related to the application part. It's just a communication. They are just facilitating the transportation of the messages or the packets which are going from one side to another side, right? So, and this is the beauty of the internet architecture, that for developing the applications, an application developer don't have to worry about that, oh, how my code is going to be, how my this application will going to be run on X device or Y device, right? That intermediate device which are going to process. So entire code we write at a end host only, and this is the reason why the millions of or thousands of applications, tens of thousands of applications have been created since the internet is uh, proposed after internet architecture or internet came into the picture after that, and day by day so many applications we are uh, creating, right? And this is related to the internet architectures end to end principle, right? End to end principle. End to end principles means end host has been given the entire complexity is handled at the end host only, right? Okay. So now come to the okay. So basic application, how the this network application is different from the other traditional non-network application. Let us say that we understood. Now let us see that what are the different applications architectures for the network applications. So there are 3 architectures. One is the client server architecture, and we most of the applications today's we run as a client server application. One example is your web server is there. Let's say Bits Pilani website is there, that we are running a web server, and then the client machines can connect to that web server, and then they can fetch the information, whatever information they are looking for that, right? So the browser is example of client application, and the Apache, let us say web server, that is an example of the server application, right? So client server, then peer-to-peer means, as name indicates, that okay, there is no client, no server. It's any peer can communicate to any peer. We will discuss a little bit in detail, right? And then later we will talk about more peer-to-peer application. And third architecture is the hybrid of this, which is not fitting exactly into the client server architecture and also not fitting into the peer-to-peer. Means it's a kind of a mix of that. Okay, so let us take first the client server architecture, how the client server architecture uh, looks like. So in a client server architecture, the means you can say the endpoints, either it endpoint work as an server or in a client. So server is something which we say this is always on host is there, right? Like a Google, whenever you access Google or you access a uh, like a Bits website, so means it's always on. Anytime you just type it and then you type a URL, it means you run a client application and then you can connect to that server. So it's always on and it has a permanent IP address is there. IP address is used for identifying the you can say application. It is a one identifier actually, because where that application is there. Because if you are sending some letter to your friend, means you need to specify what address, right? Without address, how the letter will go actually, right? You need, so IP address is something working for as an identifying that location or that server. But client server architecture, and the client is what it's in the client server architecture, always the communication is going from client to communication is initiated by always from the client, and the server is always means in a receiving mode. Always first it receive the request. Server is not send anything from on its own, right? It's not like that server starts sending something to clients. It's not happen in that way, we know that. So client always initiate the communication, mean they send some request, and we, on as a response to that request, the server send the response message, right? So communicate, so client always initiate the communication, and the client may be intermittently connected, means there may be a connectivity problem at a client side that we also observe nowadays more, that we are trying to connect and then we are not able to connect, then we try 2-3 times and then we connect. Problem can be anywhere, maybe our server side it can be the problem, client side also there may be a network connectivity problem. There are a whole bunch of problems can be there. Right now, let us say don't go in that part, but idea is that okay, client may have an intermittent connectivity, and client may have the IP address also. They can be a different IP address, dynamic IP address. Server side IP address should be permanent, because that should not change very frequently, like every 10 minutes, half an hour server side IP address is changing. You understand that? Suppose you want to communicate to your friend and your friend is changing number every 10 minutes, then it will be difficult for you, na? So means how the clients will come to know that okay, the server address has been changed. So that should be more or less it should be permanent. Yeah, it can be changed, but okay, when you change it, then you need to means communicate that information. Okay, my address has been changed. Now how to communicate, we'll see that. How the servers means communicate to the rest of the world that okay, my address has been changed. In the client server architecture, what is the other thing that is important to understand is client cannot communicate directly. Two clients cannot communicate directly, right? Always the communication is happening from client to server, and then the server respond to client. If another client want the the same information, then that client has to initiate the communication with the server, and then the server will reply. Then next architecture is peer-to-peer architecture. In this peer-to-peer architecture, there is no always on server kind of thing, right? Arbitrary end systems are there, like your laptop is there, my laptop is there. Okay, they are means there is no specialized, you can say application is running. Same application is running, I mean that is working as a client and the server both. Basically, so two clients can communicate without any, you can say the intervention of the server, means directly they can communicate any two machine. So this looks more scalable, you can say architecture. Uh, as compared to the client server, I'm going back to the client server, like you know that if you are accessing Google or YouTube, do you think that okay, there is a single server is there? No, client server architecture is not scalable, because as the number of clients are which are going to access my server, if they are increasing, then every every server has some fixed amount of physical resources, some finite resources in terms of computing, memory, etc., bandwidth available at the server side. So that is not scalable for any number. That's why nowadays we see that there is a concept of virtual server. So virtual server in data centers, what happen? You have a huge amount of resources are there, means computing resources, storage, memory, and all. And then in the data centers, they actually create uh, logical, or you can say basically it's a, we call as a virtual server in terminology. So that virtual server is a large powerful machine which runs on the a shared infrastructure, right? So you have a large amount of you can say huge amount of infrastructure in terms of computing, processing power, and all. And that there you create a logical machine, basically not a physical machine, correct? You have a multiple physical machine. You can understand right now. If you don't understand virtual server and all, don't worry about that. So you can assume something like that, that there is a software is a layer which abstract the hardware, and it gives a illusion that okay, you have a uh, uh, means huge capacity in terms of storage, in terms of memory, primary memory I'm talking about, and the computation power, that is CPU. And uh, an underlying architecture, multiple machines, basically physical machines on which your this virtual server is created. And whenever this virtual server get any request, then that request will be processed by the underlying hardware, right? So this technology, or this concept technique is used for dealing with the large number of customers in the client server architecture. So just a single machine, physical machine, will not be sufficient. Okay. So now in a peer-to-peer architecture, there is, I said, there is no server is there. So means peers directly communicate with each other. And the examples of these peer application examples which runs or the follows this peer-to-peer architecture is the Freenet and BitTorrent application. Typically, file sharing applications comes under this. So you means irrespective of the number of you can say users. So there is no, you can say, performance bottleneck in a client peer-to-peer architecture. These file sharing a BitTorrent, these torrents are huge networks basically. And number of as the number of nodes are adding, basically more capacity is adding to the network. So it's a highly scalable, because the communication is not dependent on a certain one particular node which is there in the client server. In client server, server is always something, an entity which every client is going to connect to that. But here the communication is happening between the peers. So more on this peer-to-peer application we'll do when we'll move in subsequent lectures. So as I said, this is a highly scalable, but with scalability comes with the cost. That is, the managing such networks is a tedious task. Then the third architecture, which is comes fit into both paradigms like client server and the peer-to-peer, means which are not purely client server and the purely peer-to-peer, like Skype application we use for audio video conferencing. So in a Skype is an internet telephony application. So in Skype, what is a central part is there. So initial, you can say means getting the information of your friends or your group members to which you want to communicate. That information you are getting from centralized server. Okay. And then the clients communicate directly after that. So some authentication happens, that happens on the centralized like chatting application. So initial authentication is or getting your friends list, that For that, there is some central server is there. From there, this information is coming, and after that, the clients are directly communicating. So you can say one central part is there in these applications, and or in these type of applications, and then the rest of the communication happens over a client to client basis. So means this architecture basically have a positive of the or the have a benefit of the client server architecture, and also the benefit of peer-to-peer architecture. Scalability wise, peer-to-peer architecture is good, but managing wise, client server architecture is better. So you can manage better, means one place you need to store some information which you want to give to all clients. But in peer-to-peer architecture means if some such central information where you keep it, means there are thousands of nodes are there, you need to replicate everywhere, and that will be more cumbersome, and maintaining the dynamicity of this information, again it's a problematic task. Okay, so that's why this hybrid of client server architecture is also hybrid of client server and the peer-to-peer architecture, that is also popular. Okay, so what we learned so far, we learned that there are network application. What is network application? How it is different from the traditional non-network application, which we run on a single system. And then the these on the network, there are three broad categories of the applications, and these broad categories we understood. Any quick question at this moment? We can take one or two questions, and then we can move to the next part. Anything which you want to ask related to this? Nothing? Okay, so I'm moving to the next part. So now we are going to the very important segment of this today's lecture, and basically from here you will build your understanding about how the network applications communicate actually, right? So for the communication, you see here in this diagram, so you have this is an end host, or that can be server or a client. That depends upon what application I am running, the client application or server application. Accordingly, it will be treated as either host or service. So two. So right now we say that okay, there are two machines or two computers are there, and they want to communicate. Now exactly what communicates? Applications communicate. Two computers don't communicate. Applications communicate. Now application is running on this side, as well as one part of application is running on this side. Like web server is running on the server side, and this web browser application like Firefox or your Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, whatever web browser application you run, that is your client application, which is running on client side. You can assume like this. Now, you know, in operating system course, you might have learned, or maybe in this semester, if you are doing, then you are learning now, that actually the application don't communicate. When the application is running, then the running state of the application we call as a process. So basically, a process is communicating. One process is communicating to another process. So that's why here I'm showing here. Yeah. Okay, here a application is running, and running state of that application is a process. So this is one process is running here, and one process is running here, right? Now, okay, so now we know that, okay, so the process is basically OS level abstraction. So running state of the application is there. Now this process, how will this process will communicate to this process? So at a local side, the process will process is running at an application level, and now this process needs to whatever data it want to send, or whatever information it want to send to the another machine or the network, that it needs to pass to the transport layer. Means the application layer take help from the transport layer to, okay, you take this my packet and send on the network other side, right? So the how this process is sending this information, so the process is sending this information to the transport layer via a socket. Now what is socket? So socket is the interface between the application layer and the transport layer within the host. Okay, if you want to understand in more better way, okay, in normal terminology, what is socket? So take an analogy of uh, a house and the door. So house is analogous to the process and the door is analogous to the socket. So to enter into the house, you need a socket. So the in this way, and if you want to go out from the house, then you need a door to out. So at a sending side, it is working this via the socket. The process is sending the information to the data to the transport layer. At a receiving side, uh, uh, this application is receiving the data from the transport layer through this socket. So socket is an interface. It is also called as a application program interface, right? API. This is a more common word which is used. API, application program interface. So socket you can treat as an API basically. And socket is not a hardware entity. It's a name indicate that oh, it's maybe some instrument is there. No, it is a software entity. Socket is a software entity. Now, so now let us say that okay, so within a same machine, you know, the multiple applications can run, and corresponding to each application, the process is running, and these two processes also they can communicate. You might have learned in operating system course process communication, how the inter-process communication happens. So in the same host also they communicate. But we are not interested right now to know, okay, how the inter-process communication happens, shared memory or message passing or whatever. We are now in this course, we are interested not the process communication within the same host. We are interested to know the process communication across the multiple machines over the network. So our focus will be here. Processes in different hosts, how they communicate. So for the different hosts, they communicate by exchanging the message. There is no other way to that. They need to exchange the message. Suppose this process wants to say hello to this process. So this process has to send something, some information, means say hello, and that hello will be received, and then this fellow will reply back via the same means network, that this person will say, okay, hi. So this kind of communication, the processes they do through the network only by sending the messages, by exchanging the messages with each other. Okay. So you understand the concept of process, application, process, and the socket, right? So now, uh, now, so this process is running here. Now this process wants to communicate to this process. Now for that, this process needs to know the address of the process which is running here. Okay, I just name it here. I say this is process 1, then this is process 2. So this is just a name is given. Now this process 1 wants to send some message to process 2. So for that it needs address of the process 2. Okay, then only address of the process 2 is required for the sending any message. Like you send a letter, or even you in today's context we talk about you are sending the mail, so you need some address, no, for the destination address. So now what the next question is that how to uh, identify the processes, how to name the processes, how to give the address, what address we should use for means identifying the or means selecting the processes. Or so to so as I said, to receive the messages, processes must have the identifier, or you can say the address basically. Now what is the address? Okay, I can say that okay, this process is running on this IP address. So this IP address is something like that 122.20.10.5, and this address is 70.5.2.20. Okay, this is IPv4 address, and this is also a one IPv4 address. Okay, you are familiar with the IP address, but more detail IP address we'll discuss when in network layer we'll talk about. But let us assume this IP address both have. Okay, is it enough to communicate that processes to use the IP address? Just IP address is enough for addressing? Now suppose P1 wants to communicate to P3, then will the IP address will be sufficient? Because IP address of this machine will be applicable to both the processes. Here the two processes are running. Here also two processes. Suppose P1 wants to communicate to P3. So P1 need to specify that, okay, I want to send my data to P3, not P4. And P2 say, okay, I want to send my data to P4. Although both the communication will go via the network, but when it will arrive here, then there should be some distinguishing factor which can say that, okay, oh, this message is for P3, this message P4. Otherwise, it will be a problem. Like you have a home, and within home house, you get your 5 people are living, right? So now postman come with a letter and say, okay, this is a letter for house number 50, right? Your house number is 50. Now what happened? Who will take this letter actually? Means everyone has to open. Okay, it belongs to me. That is a one way. So this is not a means way to to communicate. Means the letter should have one more information. What information? To identify the to whom this
Process ID.
letter. Huh?
Process ID.
Process
ID.
ID is process ID will be how the P1 will know the process ID which is running on the another machine.
We could use the port number.
Right. Process ID is applicable to the operating system only. Operating system distinguish among the multiple processes which are running in the same machine through the process ID. Okay, that is yes, port is also you can say kind of analogous to that, but there's a different entity which is used in a communication. So port is used means you see that this is the P1 is, so to this socket we bind, although we'll do these things in the when after next after 2-3 classes, that how we'll simple application also will write, and that we'll do in a lab as well. So it binds a this process P1 binds with the port number. Okay. So like you have a house, and within the house you have room numbers are there, 5 rooms are there. Then so one address is belongs to okay your house number, and then within house number, okay, you have 1, 2, 3, like your hostel is there. In your hostel you have a okay Krishna Bhavan, and within the Krishna Bhavan, let us say you have a room number is there. So port number is nothing but it works as a room number, right? So and this port is associated with the socket. So now you know that okay, on this P1 process P1 is bind with this port through this socket, and P2 is bind with the, so I say socket number 1, 2, 3, 4 is for this, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is for this. Here also 1, 2, 3, 4 is running, and 5, 6, 7, 8 can be different also. Okay, because these two machines are not talking to each other, that when they this process port number should be unique within the within this you can say same machine only. So now IP address plus the port number both will uniquely identify the process which is running on a certain machine, right? So both are required. So process identifier is IP address plus port number. Now you can say that, okay, sir, how would you know that, okay, what port number it is running? So there are two types of ports we use, right? One is something that is a well-defined port, well-known ports. So well-known port like HTTP server always run on port 80. Mail server always run on port 25. FTP server runs on port 22 and port 21. Actually, FTP uses 2 ports. We'll see later. So these are the TCP ports which they use port number. So now, as in a client, web client, I know that okay, if I need to connect to some web server, then my port number is always 80. And assuming that okay, port number 80, one process is running. If that website is working, if the website is not working, then certainly I will get okay, you can't reach to the website, and you will get some error message, right? Then you have another kind types of port numbers which we say that as they are not well known port means. So well known ports are assigned to some well known applications like web application, mail application, file transfer application, and some like some more applications are there. So if you want to know the complete list that what are the well-known port numbers available, you can visit this site, http www.iana.org. So this is Internet Assigned Name. It is a it means international organization, IANA. So that means decide means what ports are well-known port and what ports are the other ports are there. Well-known ports are used for the certain applications only, right? The fixed application. Port 80 you can't use for means for any custom application, right? Okay. So now,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, so if a HTTP server has been assigned port 80, what if that server is running more than one process? So how would you like? How,
Means you okay, I think yeah, you want to ask that. Okay, so means more than one clients are connecting to that server, right? So actually the web process is running on a, so it is on a socket. It uses a socket for its receiving and sending, and this socket is bind with port number, means the port number is 80, right? Now client 1 is connecting to this, client 2 is also connecting to this, client 3 is, so there are so many clients are connecting, and there all of them have a destination port is what, 80 only, right?
yes, sir.
So
Sir, my
how it
question was, now we can only run a single web process, right? Because we only have one port.
no, you can run you can have a multi-thread server also, right? So you know the thread concept.
Yes, sir. So, sir, won't it create a problem for if we're
No, it
running?
will not be create any problem. You know that if the you can say process and then the thread, a process may have a multiple threads. One process is running, so it is means it can connect to the means multiple requests it can handle. So one way is that, okay, one by one it can handle. That's a one way of means designing a server, but that's not a good thing. Means so you have a kind of a parallel processing, right? So you can have a multiple. You can either you run the multiple processes or you run the multiple threads in a single process. So one process is running, having the multiple threads are there, and each thread is handling the one request or one client request.
Okay, sir.
Right. So more on this we'll do the socket programming. When we'll do, then we'll understand all these combinations and their implications, how a multi-threaded server works, and means a single thread server works, and all these things we'll do when we'll move to the socket programming part. So then you will get a more clarity on that.
Excuse me,
Okay.
sir.
Yes.
So the multi-threaded or the multi-process system is basically for handling multiple clients, right?
Right.
So what if we want to host two different websites or web applications on a single server? Is that possible or not?
It is possible. You have to use like a port. You have to use a different port 8080, and then you do some kind of a redirection. We will
Okay,
discuss
sir.
all these points, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, we will discuss. Your question is good, but yeah, right now I think it will means deviate from our main discussion. But certainly we'll talk about this as well once we'll move to the socket part. Okay, so now the next thing is what transport service. So you know that, okay, application layer uses, okay, through the socket it can send, and the through socket it can receive also. But what services it is expecting, how from the transport layer, means how it will decide, how a application developer will decide, okay, what services I need, right? From the transport layer. So first of all, we need to we know that, okay, at a transport layer, internet architecture provides two services. What are the two services? One is two services, and these services are in the form of two protocols. So one is TCP and other is UDP. So there are two protocols are available at a transport layer which can be used by the application layer. Now how the application will decide that, okay, which service has to be used? For that, or ultimately that application programmer needs to decide. So for that, the one parameter is that is the data loss, whether the application is a loss tolerant or not. Means can application afford losing some data packets? So like audio video application, you know that you are watching video over a YouTube, maybe 1 or 2 packets drop in between, but still it is okay. Means okay, fine. You can make out that okay. You can say okay, I'm able to understand what is whatever this stream audio or video is there. But on the other side, if you look at the application like file transfer application, suppose when I have sent, you have downloaded a question paper. Now in this question paper, maybe few bytes are or 1 or 2 packet it missed, and then what will happen? This is not acceptable, right? Because then your question paper is incomplete. So you cannot even file transfer application cannot tolerate even a single byte missing in the original from the original file. So that means we need 100% reliable data transfer. Each and every byte should receive completely and correctly. So these are the two, you can say, different requirement with respect to the application in terms of the data loss tolerance. So that's a one parameter that okay, that is going to be decide that okay, what is the use for the application, what is required for the application, what type of service. Then I will come to the service later, that how the TCP and UDP services are different. But first look at the basic requirement in terms of data loss. Then the next is the bandwidth. I mean, some applications like multimedia application, it requires some minimum amount of bandwidth. Sometimes you might have observed that, okay, like in video right now, video communication also, at your side, if the bandwidth is very less, then what happens? This video is not running properly. It's stops in between 1 or 2 minute breaks comings and then again connect. So that's not mean some minimum bandwidth is required. Without that, that application is not going to work until that minimum bandwidth is not available, right? But there are another application which is we categorize as elastic application, means they can work whatever amount of bandwidth is there. Even it is a kbps is there, then also it will work 10.5 kbps, and if it is mbps is there, then also it will work. Like file transfer application or email application, they don't bother about that the bandwidth is low or high. If bandwidth is more, then the file transfer will happen fast, means you will be able to download the file maybe in a few seconds. Otherwise maybe it is taking few minutes for a large file, depends upon how much bandwidth is available. So we categorize this application as a elastic application, means whatever the amount of bandwidth is there, they adjust accordingly. But multimedia application requires some minimum amount of bandwidth, they need it. Without that they can't work. Audio video application. So you can say audio video application are loss tolerant, but they need some minimum bandwidth. And file transfer application are not loss tolerant, and they can sustain on any amount of bandwidth available. Then the third parameter is the timing, means that is related to the delay. Means a message sent by the application sender and the receiver receive, means is there any timing requirement in terms of okay, this message should reach within 50 millisecond or something like that. If this kind of requirement is there for application, then we'll say okay, it's a delay sensitive application, right? So like internet telephony or interactive games kind of app, these applications are a time sensitive application, means they have a very low time tolerance is there. If the message I am sending and that message is reaching in a game, in interactive game, I means did something my side and that is reflect at your side after 2 minutes, then that's not going to work. You say okay, no, this is a bakwas, it's not working. This site is not good, or this game is not good, or maybe whatever, the service is not good, right? Similarly for the internet telephony also, if I'm speaking from this side and then that message is reaching to your side, maybe minutes of delays, and then you say okay, it's a bakwas service, leave it, okay, we'll use some other service. Means they have a some you can say requirement in terms of that delay should not be more than that. Some up to some tolerance it is acceptable, but beyond that it is not there. But like file transfer application, okay, delay can be like it can be more also. Only thing is it is going to be take more time. That's not a problem. So even it is reaching too late also, it's okay. Mail application also, mail reaches delay also, that's okay. So these are the three parameters. Based on that, we say that, okay, what service the application should use. Now, yeah. Okay, so based on that, we have the two. TCP is the one. I think. Let me see that whether TCP is. So TCP and UDP, there are two services are there. TCP is a reliable service and UDP is a unreliable service. I will come to that. Means with respect to difference between the TCP and UDP with respect to this application. First, we'll just look at this application. So like this is our first application, means web application, www, that we say World Wide Web. So this application came in 1994, means first time, and HTTP is the protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP, right? So this is the application we are using since, or you people are using maybe since your childhood, maybe when you were in school, even not knowing about that what is HTTP and what is internet, still we are able to use it, and that's the beauty of internet, that okay, without knowing all these things, using the application is not a problem. Anybody can use it without knowing the internals of that. So this is typical that okay, you have a web page. So we call as this web page consists of multiple objects. You can see this web page is one. This picture is there. One more picture is there. One more picture is there, and some text is there, right? So web page is called as a HTML page, which is called as HTML file, hypertext markup language, which is used to design a web page. And JPEG images are there, and some applets, Java applets, which runs scrolling and all these things happen. Okay, some audio file also may be there, video file also may be there. So web page consists of a base HTML file which includes several referenced objects. These are all referenced objects. Some URL examples, how if you are looking for some particular web page, then you need to type this kind of a you can say text in your web browser URL bar. We call as a URL. URL stand for Universe Resource Locator. Okay, so now we'll just look at how HTTP protocols work. So we have I think three more minutes. So we'll just conclude in 3 minutes, and then we'll go to the rest. We'll discuss in the next class. So how the HTTP? So HTTP protocol, we know that it is based on the client server architecture. First of all, means there is always a server is there, and then the clients can communicate to the server. So you can see here. The request is going from the client, we call as a HTTP request, and the server responds to that. Okay, so client application, usually browser, we call as a browser. Server is an Apache or maybe Microsoft server, then IIS server is there. So different server applications are there. So what exactly in this protocol is there? Means any protocol, what is the protocol? Protocol is basically a set of rules, right? So like if suppose two people are communicating, let's say I'm have a conversation with my student, then okay, teacher and student are talking to each other. Then we follow some rule, even not teacher and student, maybe two friends are talking, then you follow some rules, right? When you're sitting in a conference room and then people are talking, then also you follow some rules. Okay, one person should speak at a time, right? So protocol means basically following some rules. Okay, so like similar way in a network applications also, they use some protocol. Means basically what they decide types of messages will be exchanged. Means what messages will be exchanged. So there is a, say for example, in HTTP, there's a request message is there, there's a response message is there. Okay, so these two messages needs to be defined. Then what is the syntax of the message? Means what will be there in that message. So I will show you that means the complete request message format and response message format. So what are the other fields are there in that? How the information will be delineated in a number of fields in the message, request message and the response message. Then meaning of these fields, that also should be code in your application. So the client is sending, then server should understand also, right? So you have to implement your application so that client application, when it is sending the request, then server can process that request, understand that, and then the accordingly response can send. So as I said that TCP, so HTTP application or web application uses TCP as its transport layer protocol. Now on what basis TCP have been decided? So TCP is a reliable protocol, and reliable means it each and every you can say packet sent by the TCP from the sender side to receiver side, TCP ensures that okay, all the packets have been successfully received. Now how it ensures, okay, it has a reliability feature is there in this protocol that we'll discuss when we'll do the transport layer. So for HTTP, this reliability is very important actually. Why? Because HTTP web page we access. Now web page, if the one image is not coming, or maybe the half of the image is coming, or maybe some text is missing, that is not acceptable for this application. Delay can be there. So bandwidth is guarantee something, okay, that's okay. But each and every packet should be, so reliability is very important for us. That's why for HTTP application, designers have chosen, okay, TCP is the right protocol because it provides the reliability. On the other side, UDP does not provide any reliability. Okay, so that's why TCP is chosen. Now, how the we'll just see this slide and then we'll conclude. So this is a client and this is a server, because it's HTTP is a web application is a client server architecture it follows. So as it uses a transport layer TCP connection, so first that at a transport layer between this machine and this machine, so this client machine and server machine, we have to means a TCP connection needs to be established. So for that there is a process that okay, how the TCP connection is established. So right now you assume okay, the TCP is connection is established for us, fine, okay, that is for application it is ready. So some message sent by the client side for establishing the TCP connection and the server reply back. So let us say this we call as a 1 RTT of time is consumed in that opening this connection, right? TCP connection. RTT means round trip time. Round trip time, correct? Okay. After that, now this connection is established. Let us say connection established doesn't mean it's a circuit switch. Okay, don't confuse with that. It is not a circuit switch. It is something that both processes, both side transport layers are basically they are know each other that okay, fine, from this side something will come and then I need to send something from this side, and from where it will take the data, it will take the data from the application process which is running on this side, both sides. So it will take and this, so in this direction also it will send and receive. So they are facilitators basically. Transport layer is a facilitator. Okay, anything will come from this side, okay, I will hand over to this side. Anything will come from this side, I will hand over to this side. And they will make sure that okay, nothing is missed out. Whatever has been sent this side, everything will be received at. So application layer can rely on that transport layer service that okay, yes, my this and transport layer will provide me all these things. Now the request, so then after that then the request message will go. So request message will go and then as a response the reply will come. Now this reply can be a large file, suppose a large image is there or a video file is there, so that will means some time it can take. So the first response the client will get, how much time it will take? One RTT it will take, one RTT it will take for establishing the TCP connection, and then at least one RTT for getting the first response. One RTT plus this time, this black strip time is called as a file transmission time. File transmission time. This will depend upon the bandwidth available and bandwidth available between client and server and the size of the file. So suppose 10 Mbps is there and file size is a 10 MB, so it will take 1 second. If file size is 20 MB, megabit, then or a 10 Mbps connection, it will take 2 seconds to transmit the file. And then some propagation delay also will be there, assuming that propagation delay is negligible. So if I know all the delays, even the queuing delay also may be there in between intermediate hops. But considering that, okay, the significant contribution will come from the transmission only. Other delays are right now we say ignore. Then we say it will take 2 RTT plus the file transmission time. Okay, so that will be object will be transferred, and then we'll say this connection will be closed by the client. So this just one message will be received. Okay, so we'll stop here, and we'll continue with this in the next class. That is on tomorrow. Fine. Thank you.